Was Kanan Jarrus born on Lothal, and does he live on in the Force as a Lothwolf? These questions answered in this video, but before we get to that, I want to say I'm Mike and welcome you back to Force Within TV, where we're building a Star Wars animation community, and we'd love you to join us by subscribing. But back on track here, Freddie Prinze Jr. himself was on the Forcecast podcast recently, and the Force.net blog did a review of the key points of the interview. So what exactly did we learn from the voice of Kanan Jarrus? Well, he addressed the big question so many of us had about Kanan. Was he born on Lothal? Freddie answered, if you wanted to know more about his history or origin, go back a few episodes and go back into the cave and look at the hieroglyphs, and just know that those hieroglyphs aren't as old as you might think. The Force.net goes on to say about Freddie's response, the episodes he's referring to is Kindred and a little bit of Crawler Commanders, where the Lothwolves lead them into the caves around the Jedi Temple. When they enter, they are surrounded by cave drawings or hieroglyphs that appear to tell the history of the Jedi and the Jedi Temple on Lothal. End quote. Now, in a past video, I suggested that these hieroglyphs must depict an ancestor of Caleb Dume, aka Kanan Jarrus, but as Freddie suggested, they aren't that old, and it sounds like they actually hint at Kanan's life. So if this is true, then who drew those paintings? Drawing cave paintings like that is usually something primitive people do. So perhaps Caleb Dume was part of a primitive group of people on Lothal, that outside the farms and cities on Lothal, there was still a primitive group of people, and that once the Empire comes, perhaps those primitive people were rounded up and taken to Tarkin Town. Or maybe the cave drawings were created by the Force itself. It's hard to tell, but another interesting question is, what does it all mean? Well, the Force.net goes on to say that these drawings or hieroglyphs make a great deal of sense, not the least of which we don't yet know the origins of Kanan Jarrus, aka Caleb Dume. All we know is that he was born 33 BBY before the Battle of Yavin. He knew his parents and was taken to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant at a very young age, end quote. So personally, I think it means we now know Kanan's homeworld, Lothal. This is certainly hinted at during the series, and Freddie all but confirms it here. But why wouldn't Dave Filoni explain this further in the story? Well, part of Star Wars is mystery, and it is just like Dave Filoni to hold this information from us throughout the series, and then only give us hints about the actual answer, not an actual answer. He wants us to think about it, and to come to our own conclusions as fans. This is something he often states in interviews, and he wants the audience to come up with their own ideas. He wants to inspire people to dream and develop their own story, because for many of us, that is more fun than actually watching the show. And I also really love how the Force.net wraps up this part of the article saying that Star Wars is often so wonderfully symmetrical that it would be a beautiful concept that Kanan's life and relationship with the Force would start and end on Lothal. End quote. I couldn't agree more. Kanan's death is so poetic, especially if you've read Kanan's full story in the comics and novels, where we learned how he traveled far and wide, wandering and lost throughout the galaxy before coming home to Lothal to save the planet. Reminds me a bit of the story of Strider or Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. But that said, did Freddie Prinze drop any other knowledge on the podcast? Well, yes, he did. He mentioned some pretty dark news, and that is that Kanan is not living on in the afterlife as a Lothwolf. His death is unfortunately final, and we will not be seeing him again. Now, Lucasfilm could always backtrack on this, but I know for one, I'm happy that there are no plans to bring back Kanan, as it would totally take away from his amazing sacrifice and lesson to Ezra. If you're interested, I'll link to my video on Dave Filoni's thoughts on Kanan's death at the end of this video, but remember to use the Force within you to make our Star Wars animation community a better place. Share your thoughts on the question of the day and encourage those who do the same. And today's question is, who do you think created those cave paintings? Definitely a big mystery. Let me know in the comments below, and may the Force be with you.